All right, I have returned my assignment page to the categories that were there when I opened up my template this fall. And those categories are practice, criterion A, criterion B, criterion C, criterion D. That's it. If I open these up, you'll see that I'm following naming conventions, and you're going to see in a minute why that is going to save me as I'm determining student grades. This is a way to hack Canvas to make our grade book, make our determining summative or final grades at the end of the course much, much easier. And these will become second nature. It has for me already, just in the first couple of weeks. Anything that I put in the practice category, I'm starting with the letter P for practice. And I'll show you why when we look at the grade book. Then I'm putting the number of the assignment, the name of the assignment. Notice none of these are worth any points because we no longer put points in our grade book. We're only putting IB scores from a rubric. So if it isn't being scored on a rubric, it doesn't get a number. The only exception to this would be if I had an ATL assignment that's out of 4. So there are outcomes in your grade book with ATL. If I created a practice assignment for ATL, that would be worth 4 points. All of these are just practice. I've made them either ungraded or complete/incomplete. And that's the kind of feedback I'm giving kids on practice assignments is, yep, you completed it. It just shows up as a check mark in the grade book. And then imported assignments, nothing should live there. If I import something, once it's in my assignment list, then I'll move it to the right category. Then I've got my criterion A, and I'm going to talk for a quick second about the naming conventions here. Remember, and there's a whole video about this in our Learning Canvas course that you can go back and look at, but criterion A, because that's the category we're in, it's a formative, so I put an F, and you'll see when we look at the grade book why that matters. Then the number, and the number matters too, and then the name of the assignment. Kids will pretty quickly skip over all of this information with their eye and see the number and the name of the assignment because my kids are already doing that. And then I've got my criterion B and C and D formatives in those categories. All right, so that's everything. I'm either giving them practice, and I'm going to have more practice early in the term when they're just acquiring the knowledge, the acquisition phase. And then as they're actually starting to do something with that knowledge, that's where I'm starting to use my criterion assessment rubrics. All right, now I'm looking in my grade book. And I've got it sorted alphabetically. And the magic happens here. So everything that is criterion A formative will be in numerical order from first to last over the whole course of the year. And then all of my criterion A summatives will be lumped together from first to last. What that will let me do is I can look at the trend of student scores over time for their formatives and their summatives. And that is what I'm going to use to help me determine their final score for a criterion A. Criterion B, same thing. I'm going to first have my B formatives, then my B summatives, and they're all going to be in order from the first assignment I gave to the most recent, which will help me look at the trend over time. Criterion C, criterion D, and then off to the right, where I don't have to really look at the end of the year because there's going to be a whole bunch of stuff in there that I used as snapshots along the way to see whether or not kids were engaging in the acquisition phase of learning. But I don't need to look at these to determine their final score. By putting the P at the front, it's moved all of those practice assignments over to one side of my gradebook. I can still go back and look at those and look for a pattern over time. Did you drop off in your practice? Like you were doing really well at the beginning of the year and you stopped doing practice, and now we can see the difference in your formatives over here. But I don't need to look at those. If I keep scrolling to the right, eventually I'm going to see percents, which are truly meaningless for me in this version of our gradebook, and I can completely ignore those. And rest assured, unless you're clicking a button that says show percents to parents, which apparently is possible, please don't click that button and go in and unclick it if you have selected it, because parents don't need to see percents either. So naming conventions matter, and the assignment categories are going to help immensely in organizing these naming conventions and these assignments. So you can see where everything lives. It's reinforcing that anything that is getting a score is connected to an IB rubric and a criterion strand. And now I'm going to sit down at the end of the year, and I don't have to click on anything to figure out what assignment am I looking at, what criterion was this, what do these numbers even mean. It's all super, super clear, and it should be a pretty straightforward process to determine the final score for students. All right. If you have changed your assignment categories or you have not been using the recommended naming conventions, my recommendation is right now, we're only at the start of the third week of class. It's not too late to go back and get those all lined up, because I promise you will be grateful later if you can sort your grade book and assess student work and come up with a summative score for the course without having to undo a whole year's worth of assignments. All right, ask me if you have questions. I am available by phone, Google Meet, or email, and I am eager to help. Peace.